The history of Christian Dior. You can sense the ethereal, opulent ring of the Christian Dior name the moment you hear it. For many years, Christian Dior has ruled the high seas of fashion, drawing the most illustrious monarchs and exclusive clients from across the globe. Dior has always given individuals who chose to wear the silhouette an intuitive sense of elegance, regardless of the season. Dior is appropriately recognized as the pinnacle of the fashion business for these and many more reasons. This video explains how Christian Dior became the most popular and impossible to ignore French designer. So, who was Christian Dior? Christian Dior, a legendary name in the world of fashion, burst into the French scene after the war, when he designed clothes that defied the gender norms of the time and brought back an emphasis on elegance and luxury for women's apparel. He became the most successful fashion designer in the world due to the originality of his designs and his business strategies. His brand is still at the forefront of the fashion world, and his creations have been worn by royalty and Hollywood stars. Early life. In the northern French town of Granville on January 21st, 1905, Dior was born. He was the second child to be born to Isabelle and Alexander Louis Maurice Dior, who owned a very profitable fertilizer company. When Dior was a young child, his family relocated to Paris, where he spent his adolescence. Dior enrolled in the École des Sciences Politiques in 1925 to start his political science studies because his father wanted him to work as a diplomat. Dior, though, was more drawn to the arts and architecture than to politics. When Dior graduated from high school in 1928, he used the money he had inherited from his father to establish a small art gallery. His father had consented to give his son money, but only under the stipulation that the family name would not be posted above the door to the shop. Throughout its short life, the Dior Gallery featured works by well-known artists such as Georges Braque, Pablo Picasso, Jean Cocteau, and Max Jacob. He was forced to close the gallery in 1931 due to the deaths of his mother and eldest brother, as well as the demise of his father's firm. Early work in fashion. Following the closing of his gallery, Dior began selling his fashion drawings to make ends meet. He started working as an artist for Figaro Illustré in 1935. Years later, Dior worked in the design office of couturier Robert Piguet in Paris. However, the following year, in 1940, Dior served as an officer in the French army in the south of France during World War II. But that didn't stop him from pursuing his goals of fashion design. So Dior returned to Paris in the wake of France's 1940 capitulation to Germany, and couturier Lucien Lelong promptly employed him. After serving his nation, he joined Pierre Balmain as the chief designers of the famous couturier Lucien Long in 1942. Throughout the war, French ateliers such as Jean Lanvin and Nina Ricci, as well as others like Lelong, dressed the wives of Nazi officials and French collaborators in an attempt to protect the fashion industry for economic and artistic reasons. Dior's younger sister, Catherine Dior, joined the French resistance at the same time and was captured by the Gestapo and deported to the Ravensbrück prison camp. After being rescued, she was set free in 1945. Upon the release of his first scent in 1947, Christian Dior named his muse Miss Dior in honor of his sister's war efforts. On December 16, 1946, he founded the House of Christian Dior at 30 Avenue Montagny in Paris, with the support of cotton fabric mogul Marcel Boussac. Since Dior's first collection was shown to the public in 1947, that year is considered the founding year of the Dior fashion company. Dior's new look. At the very first Dior runway show, he coined the phrase "new look" and used it to describe the collection. According to Culture Trip, the collection included structured lines, nipped waists, and shorter, billowy skirts, as a way to represent the conclusion of World War II. These design choices signaled an end to the wartime restrictions and represented a return to elegant opulence. This was done by including these elements in the collection. The dresses each used an average of 20 yards of fabric, which contributed to their luxurious appearance. Dior's designs were deemed groundbreaking at the time, and as a consequence the fashion company quickly established itself as one of the most prominent and respected in the world. Everyone, from Margot Fonteyn to Rita Hayworth, wanted to dress themselves in Dior's new look, which was ahead of its time. Stars flocked to Christian Dior. His clothing rapidly became recognizable and established itself as one of the most iconic in the annals of sartorial history because of the high-profile women who wore it. But not all those in the public eye had easy access to Dior's styles. King George V supposedly prohibited the young princesses Elizabeth and Margaret from wearing the new look. for fear of setting a terrible example during a period when rationing was still in effect. Nevertheless, Dior was instructed to display the collection to the British royal family in secret. Dior goes global. Dior immediately gained international recognition. With the construction of a store on 5th Avenue and 57th Street in New York City in 1948, Dior made its debut in the United States. Along with the global launch, the collection's offerings were also expanded. With the release of Miss Dior, which he gifted to his sister, Dior made his debut in the fragrance business. At the same time, Dior realized that his business needed to serve the whole fashion industry in order to preserve his new look. For accessories, a license for the Dior brand was required. The Dior customer could now buy every piece of clothing, including hats, shoes, and outerwear, needed to fully embody the new look. The Dior brand grew as Dior himself continued to outfit the biggest stars of the era. Even Marlene Dietrich wore his clothing when she starred in Alfred Hitchcock's Stage Fright in 1950. She, as with many other movie stars in the late 1940s and early 1950s, continued to stock her wardrobe with his creations. Now that was the big shot for Dior. The introduction of Yves Saint Laurent. Yves Saint Laurent, a young and ambitious designer, began working for Christian Dior in 1955 when he was just 19 years old. He began his career as Dior's assistant, but the label's creative director soon recognized the young Frenchman's talent, but he had other plans for this young man. In 1957, Dior visited with Saint Laurent's mother to inform her that he had picked her son to take over the family business when the time came, according to Vogue. She recalled being perplexed by the comment at the time, since Dior was just 52. Little did she know how timely his prediction would be. Christian Dior's death. Christian Dior's mansion was in ruins when he suffered a heart attack on October 24, 1957, shortly after his fateful meeting with Saint Laurent's mother. His burial had over 2,500 attendees in total, including all of his employees, as well as notable clientele like the Duchess of Windsor, who attended his burial. Yves Saint Laurent, who was 21 years old at the time, was chosen by Jacques Root as creative director in an effort to stabilize the label. By primarily maintaining the original creative concept, the 21-year-old continued Dior's heritage. He aimed to give the brand a gentler appearance by letting out some of the rigidity and releasing the constricted waistlines. As the business community struggled to accept a new leader for the Christian Dior brand, the collections were a hit or miss. Saint Laurent was fired from the company in 1960 after receiving a summons to duty in the French army. Dior's impressive creative leaders and LVMH purchase. After Yves Saint Laurent left, Marc Bouhan took over and reorientated the brand towards Christian Dior's classic style. He took Christian Dior's concept, simplified it for the 1960s while still preserving the Dior design, and made it his own. Under Bouhan's direction, Dior once again became an internationally admired label. Bouhan remained with Dior for more than 10 years, helping to further develop the company's reputation and increase its level of success on a global scale. By introducing ready-to-wear pieces and children's clothing, he increased Dior's accessibility. As more and more Dior boutiques opened in major cities like London and Hong Kong, the label rocketed to the top of the fashion business. However, there was a slight twist. The Boussac Group, the parent business of Dior, declared bankruptcy in 1978. Christian Dior was recently purchased by Bernard Arnault, the businessman who founded the LVMH Moet Hennessy. Arnault inherited the positions of chairman, CEO, and managing director when he took over Christian Dior. Christian Dior remained an outstanding independent brand, despite being merged with LVMH. Gianfranco Ferrer, who officially launched Dior Haute Couture, a crucial division of the Christian Dior business, was brought on board with a new direction and employed as creative director in 1989. With the addition of his own creative vision and a more sophisticated aesthetic than the brand was previously known for, Ferrer took the company to new heights. The male branch of Dior, often known as Dior Homme, was established in 2001, with Hedi Slimane acting as its creative director. John Galliano and the Dior saddlebag. Following Ferrer's term as creative director, John Galliano took over and guided Dior into the new century, dressing every famous person you can think of, including Princess Diana of Wales. The princess preferred Galliano's handbags above his clothing as well as his couture, despite the fact that Galliano's saddlebags have evolved into a cornerstone for the Dior brand and become very popular. Princess Diana's go-to bag was one that Galliano ultimately christened Lady Dior, with Diana's agreement. She expanded the leather goods line for Dior by carrying her black purse wherever she went. Raf Simons took over. The designers who worked for Dior before Galliano were radically out of line with his vision. Not everyone embraced it, even if some did. Raf Simon took over as creative director after he left the company in 2001 and aimed to return Dior to its heritage. Similar to vintage Dior, Simon's designs were more subtle and feminine. Maria Grazia Curie's joining Dior. Last but not least, Maria Grazia Curie was appointed as Christian Dior's first female creative director in 2016. She transformed the brand from feminine to feminist, making it both contemporary and timeless. According to Curie, she is here because of her skills as a worker, not because she is a woman. So there you go, folks. This was the interesting history of Christian Dior. Hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you can never miss an update. Till then, see you all in